Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's tutorial, we're gonna build a cool weather app using Python and Tkinter. We'll dive into how to create a simple GUI, fetch real-time data, and display it in our app. So by the end of this video, you will have a fully functional weather app that can pull weather information for any city you search for. This project is beginner friendly and a great way to practice using APIs and GUI development in Python. So grab your favorite code editor and let's get started. So before we get started, I would like you guys to know what we'll be using to build this project. So we'll be using the OpenWeather Map API. So let's quickly go to Google and search for it. So just quickly search for OpenWeather. As you can see it here, OpenWeather Map. OpenWeather Map. And let's go to the weather API. So this is the OpenWeather Map API. This is what we'll be using to get the real-time weather forecast in our weather app. So for those that doesn't have an account, please make sure you create an account with them so that you can be able to have your own API key. And to access your API key, once you create your account, to access it, just come to here. This is my username OI design, and you see my API keys. So I'm not going to be revealing my API keys for you guys, but make sure you create your own account and go to my API key. Yeah, so this is the API key panel, and this is my keys. So it's being blurred right now. So make sure you create your own account, and this is the key you are going to be using. You are going to copy it and we're going to use it in our app. So let's get started. So now I've already created the file, which is the OpenWeather app.py, which is this. So you can name your own any name of your choice. I'm using the PyCharm IDE. I always use this for my Python projects. So for those that are in other IDEs, you can as well create your own file and get started. So firstly, we are going to import the request module. Import requests. So this module allows us to make HTTP requests to external APIs. In our case, our OpenWeather Map API. So we are going to be using this module to make HTTP requests, and we are going to import Tkinter as well, which is our standard Python library for creating GUI. So we're going to import it. So import Tkinter as TK, and from Tkinter, import message box. So message box is what allows us to display pop-up messages like alert and error. This is what we'll be using to work. We have imported our library, so let's get straight to our code. First and foremost, we are going to get our API key first. So we're going to get our API key. Like I said, I'm not going to be revealing my API key. So I've created a function, and I've created a file where I'm storing you can see it here, API key.txt. I'm not going to open that, but I'm going to open it with Python here to retrieve the API key. So let's create a function for that. So def get API key, Yes. So inside the function with open. So what's the name of our file? So our file is API key.txt. Now we should open it in read mode. So as file, now the API key variable equals to file.read. So you should read it, and it should strip to remove any leading or trailing spaces from the key. Then it should return. So our function should return the API key. Perfect. So to retrieve the API key, we'll just call this function to retrieve it. So now we have gotten our API key. Let's progress to creating our function for getting the weather. So def get weather. So inside the weather, we should create a variable city, because the user is going to type the city that they want. So city equals, remember we're using Tkinter, so we are going to create an entry for it, but that will be at the end of the function. Where we are done with the function, we'll create our Tkinter labels and entries and whatever. So city entry, remember this is not valid yet till we create it with Tkinter. So city entry dot get, we are going to get whatever the user is going to type. Then API key, our API key is equals get. So now we are going to get what's the API key, which is this here. So we are going to use the current weather data API, and we are going to use the free version actually. So the free version is the version 2.5. So weather URL. So we are going to be using this URL to make requests. So equals formatted string, because we are going to be using variables inside. Sorry, formatted string f. So let's make a request. So http://api.open. So this is the URL for making requests using the 2.5 version. OpenWeather map.org/data/2.5, which is the version, and /weather. Then let's add the parameter. So q. So the q is the query. We can use the state, you can use the city, but in this case we are using the city, so which is this city here, as you can see. So in curly braces city, which is the variable city which the user is going to be supplying. So and the app ID, which is same thing as the API key. The app ID is equals this API key here. So I'm just going to type it real quick. So API key. So yeah. So and the units should be metric. So and units equals metric. So I'm using the metric system. So now this is our URL. This is what we are using to make the request to OpenWeather map. So in order to be able to get data from them. So let's try. So we use the try. So for it to test first, and if we have any error, it should throw an exception. So that's the reason for the try. So weather. So we are creating a new variable, weather response equals what? Requests. So now we're using this module here, request. Remember, it allows us to make HTTP requests. So equals request dot get. So we're using the get method. You know, there's get method, there's post, there's put, there's delete, whatever. We're using the get method because we supplied parameters here, as you can see, city and app ID. So now what are we getting? We are getting the URL, which is this, saved in this variable. So weather URL. So if it's able to get it, then it should transform it into data. So weather data equals weather response, which is this response here. So response from OpenWeather map, then convert it to JSON so that we can be able to read it. So yeah, so now if weather data, which is our response here in JSON format, dot get, now a dictionary. You know, the get by default comes with a dictionary. So the code, which is this code, is equals 200. So 200 means that's status code in HTTP request. So 200 means okay. So if this is okay, which is the weather response, if it is okay, that's if it was successful. So before I proceed, I would like to show you guys how it looks. Create an example here. So I'm just going to say London, for example, or let's say Texas. So Texas now is our city, and we have our API key. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this, Ctrl+C. I'm going to paste it outside the try block, and I'm going to comment this out. So now I'm going to return the weather data. So now once we return it, I'm just going to show you how the data looks like. That's what I'm doing. So I'm just going to print get weather. So now let's run. So if we run, so you can see we have some results here. We have the longitude. This is a dictionary. I think we have a dictionary. This is a list of dictionary. So we have the coordinates, longitude, latitude. We have the weather. We have the main clouds. Inside the main dictionary, we have clouds, description, so on and so forth. So you can see we have the feels like. Okay, sorry, this is the main dictionary. You can see we have the temperature, feels like, temperature minimum, temperature maximum, pressure, and we have the visibility, wind, and so on. We have so many information. So this is how it looks. So this is how it looks like. So that's that. So I'm just going to Control Z. I'm just going to Control Z real quick. So we are going to create a temperature variable. Temp equals weather data. Now it should find the dictionary main, and it should find the key temperature, which is this here, temperature. Remember, the temperature was located, it was nested inside the main dictionary, so that's why. So it should be saved into the temperature variable, and the feels like as well. So feels like equals weather data main, and the feels like is nested inside the main dictionary as well. So feels like, so everything should be saved into the feels like variable, and the humidity as well. Humidity variable equals weather data main. Say it's saved in the main as well. Humidity, and lastly we have the weather description. You can add other ones, but I'm just going to be sticking with these 4, and these are just the main ones that we need. So weather description equals weather data. Now inside the weather dictionary is contained the lists. So if you check the JSON response that we are getting from the weather data, we have a dictionary weather. Inside the dictionary we have a list where we have description and so many stuff there. So inside the weather dictionary, a list. So now this 0 means you should get the first, because of the index 0, you should get the first item. Inside the first item as well, we have the description, a description of the weather. So inside the weather dictionary, we have a list of dictionaries, get the first item and find the description. So that's the meaning of this. So we should save it into the weather description variable. And lastly, we should create a weather info. Now this will be created with Tkinter. So we should set it to f string, formatted string. So the first should be the city, and the next line, so backward slash, next line, temperature, if I can spell, temperature. So temperature in degrees Celsius. Yes. So next line, feels like, and I should take the feels like variable, which is this, and then also in degrees Celsius. Then next line, humidity variable, in percentage, and the description, next line as well, description the description, the desk, weather desk, okay. Then we should capitalize as well, capitalize it. So let's use the capitalize dot capitalize. Perfect. Now, so if the weather data request was successful, which is this 200, the HTTP request code, if it was successful, then it should get all these variables and then set the weather information to all these based on the weather URL requests, which is the weather data that we got here, which is this. So based on this, so if it was successful, if it wasn't successful, now let's create an else for it. So else, if it wasn't successful, then we should pop an error message, so which is the message box, which is this here. As you can see, it's message box. So we should show an error, dot show error. So the title should be error, and the message should be weather data dot get message city not found. So if it was successful, it should run this following block of code. If it wasn't, it should pop up an error saying the city not found. So that's pretty much it. So let's put our except block here. So except, so it should throw up an error. So request dot exceptions dot request exception as E. It should drop an error as well. So remember, we're trying this code, we're trying to get the response from our weather URL. So, and we're saying it was successful, but now if it didn't even go at all, that's why we're using the try. If it didn't go, if for some reason we're having an error with the request, so we are now using the except, which is the request dot exception dot request exception as E. So now it should pop up an error again using the message box dot show error. Now error as well as the title, then the message F. So failed to retrieve data. So if there was a problem retrieving the data, so this is it. If my retrieving is correct, sorry about this. It's failed to retrieve data, and now it should show us the exception, which is this E here. So E. So perfect. So we are done with it. We are done with our logic, our get weather function. So now let's create our GUI, the Tkinter GUI setup. So root equals tk dot tk. So Tkinter.tk. So we are just creating the window. So if you guys are not used to Tkinter, you can check my last video, my last tutorial. I used Tkinter to build a word counter. So I already did an explanation for creating basic window setup. So you can check that out. So root tk.tk, we are just creating the window. So the name of the window should be, so root.title. So we should set the title to weather app, and we should set the geometry as well, root.geometry to be 400 by 400, 400 pixels by 400 pixels, and we should configure it. So root.config. So what do you want to configure? We want to configure the background. So the background should be what? Light blue. Light blue. You can use any color of your choice, but I'm going to be using light blue because it's kind of like similar to the sky. So, and it's perfect for weather stuff like this. So let's create a title label. Title label equals tk dot. So let's create a label. So inside the label, so it should appear on the root, which is our window. Then text should be what? Not text variable actually. Text should be weather app So this is just like the title label. So we should set the font as well. So font equals, so we are going to take the arguments. First, we are going to set the style, which is the, let's use Helvetica. Then we should set the font size to 18. And we should make it bold. The font weight should be bold. And background should be light blue. So after the font, let's set the background BG equals light blue. So that's that. So let's pack it so that it comes on top of our window. So title label dot pack paddy equals 10. So this paddy here means it should add vertical space. So it increases the space by 10 to top and bottom. So that's the meaning of this paddy 10. So let's create a city label. City label equals TK dot. So I'm just, instead of just typing, I'm just going to copy this real quick because it's almost the same thing. Control C. I'm going to paste it here. It's Control V. So city label equals TK.label. We are creating a label roots as well, but the text should be city name. City name. Font should be Helvetica 14, but not bold. So we are going to delete this last one here. We don't want it bold, we want it normal. So background, same thing, light blue. And I'm just going to copy. Okay, I'm just going to type it real quick. So city label dot pack. So we are going to give it a padding as well too. So paddy equals, let's give it 5 top and bottom this time around. So let's create an entry as well, where the user is going to supply whatever city that they are looking for. So city entry equals TK dot entry. So we are creating an entry. So we're going to copy this real quick. So actually I'm going to set the width. Width equals 30. And I'm going to be deleting the text. So we don't need the text. You can leave the font to be Helvetica 14 as well. And there's no need for the background also. So yeah, now let's pack it as well. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it here. So I'm just going to change this, the label to entry, city entry. So let's create a search button so that when the user search, it's going to trigger our function. So let's create a search button. So search button equals TK dot button roads text. The text should be what? The text should be get weather or search, whatever you want to put. Search weather or get weather, and mine is get weather. I put search weather. So get weather. Then the font should be, I'm just going to copy this real quick. Copy this real quick. Paste it here. So comma, paste it here. But now I'm going to change this to 12 actually. And I'm going to make it bold. And now let's create a command. So whenever a user clicks on this button, it's going to trigger a command. So the command is going to be get weather. So it's going to be the get weather function. So this is it. So it's going to trigger our get weather, which is this, which is our function for handling everything. So it's going to trigger our function when the user clicks on the search button. So let's add it to our window. So let's pack it to search button dot pack, then padding. So let's get the padding of 10, vertical padding. And Now, remember this is our weather info. So let's create it now. So weather info equals tk dot string var. So string variable, because we know that, okay, it's likely to change. That's why we're using the Tkinter string var. And weather label equals tk dot label. So root text variable should be our weather info. Text variable. Okay, this is not correct. That's why. So capital L and text variable equals weather info. Now the weather info is the string var, which is this, which we'll be using. We'll be setting it to this, remember. So now it's going to be a label called weather label, and the variable is going to be the weather info, which is this. So now we should set the font to Helvetica as well. Font, we're going to copy this, Helvetica 14. Same thing, I'm not changing anything. And let's change the background to light blue as well. So I'm just going to copy this with the comma here. Control C and paste it here. And we are going to justify it. So let's justify it to the left. Justify left. And that's pretty much it. So let's give it the padding as well. So weather label dot padding equals 10. And now let's run. So root, it is our window dot main loop. So we are done. So I'm not going to briefly, we're having an error here. Let me see. One error typer. Oh, should be colon here. Yeah, perfect. So I'm just going to explain the code real quick again. So we imported our request, which is the library for making HTTP requests, get, post, and so on and so forth. So we imported Tkinter, and we imported the message box from Tkinter, and created the function to get our API key, and the function returns the API key. And we create a weather function. So we create a city variable that uses the city entry from Tkinter, which is this here. We created it. So whatever the user supplies, it should save it to the city variable, and the API key will trigger the function, which is this function that we created to fetch the API key. Then we use our weather URL for getting data from OpenWeather map, which is this. So we supplied our parameters, the city and the API key. So we use the try to test. So we said weather response equals request.getWeather. So we use the request library to get the weather, and we converted it to JSON and save it in our weather data. If the status code was okay, you should get the temperature, feels like, humidity, weather description, and we should set the weather info, which is this here. We created with Tkinter. So we should set the weather info to this, so city, temperature, and so on and so forth. So else, if the status was not okay, it should throw up an error that the city was not found. Then we created the except block here. So we now said if there was an issue with trying to fetch the response from OpenWeather map, then it should throw up an error as E, which is this. So the title should be error, and it should be failed to retrieve data due to. So this E now will be the reason why it didn't fetch the data for us. Now we use Tkinter to create our window, and we set the title to weather app. We set the geometry to be 400 by 400. We configured it to be light blue in color, and we created the label, weather app, font Helvetica 18 bold, background light blue. We packed it so that it's placed on top of our root, which is the window. So we give it the padding of 10, top and bottom, with vertical spacing. So same thing we did for the city label. Same thing we did for the city label, and we packed it as well. The city entry, same thing. We created a search button and we give it the command to trigger our get weather function, which is this. You can see it here. So once the person clicks on the search button, the get weather function triggers, and we created the weather info string var because we know that okay, it's going to be changing. We created the label and we set the text variable to be the weather info, and we packed it as well. And let's run it real quick and let's see. So if we run, so you can see our app working perfectly. So let's search for Accra. Accra is located in Ghana. So let's get the weather. So this is city Accra. Temperature 30 degrees Celsius, feels like 35, humidity 70. So I'm going to be searching for Abuja because that's where I am located, Abuja, Nigeria. So let's see. So Abuja, temperature 27.26, pretty much like that here. Feels like 29.7 degrees. It says description light rain, although there's no rain falling right now. There's no rain falling right now, but it's pretty much like this. Humidity 74. On my phone, it says 63. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. It might not be exactly, but it's going to be close. So let's search for, we can search for London. Search for London and see. So London, it says temperature 16 degrees. Feels like 15 degrees. Description, scattered clouds, humidity 77%. And that's pretty much it for our weather app. As you can see, we have used Python and Tkinter and the weather map API to create just a simple weather app. So make sure you like and subscribe. If you got to the end of this video, make sure you like and subscribe. Also, the source code will be linked in the description for you guys. So thank you all for watching and peace.